Are you ready?
Ready, let's go.
Well, get your butt. Get your butt. Oh. Hey, give me a high five. No, high five. No. Give me high five. No. Come back over here. Give me. All right. Damn.
All right, don't forget to turn the radio off, too.
I will. I'll remember to turn the radio off.
Remember your gloves.
Oh,
You might need those.
she just so bitchy. What?
Like a lazy flowing river, surrounding castles and skies.
Get on!
And the crowd is getting bigger. Listening for the happy sound.
All right.
Myself.
Do what?
I have to do everything myself.
Yes, you do. Oh. Need to tilt this back a little bit. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, it's tore the camera off, right? Why is it moving up and down? Look up in here. Well, the camera's tore off. Let's see how long it lasts. Hey, there's my new trailer. Man, I really like that thing. Look at that dovetail. See the dovetail? Let me even pull up here a little bit close. See, that makes it so much easier for loading. The other one I bought last year, it was a nice trailer, but this is so much nicer. Let's go through the yard like hillbillies. Yeah! Woo! Well, my camera mount is about to break off. I bought one of them chin mounts, and I used a heat gun to treat it and then put the sealer down, but it's just crap. How many of you folks was raised on Southern food? You know, butter beans and taters and fried green tomatoes. Tomatoes. Yeah. We cooked everything with onions. Still do today. I like to save all my bacon grease. Look here, I'm 84 years old, and I know people are going to say, you know, that stuff will kill you. Well, tell it to my grandmother. She lived to be 101 years of age. Some say 102. But she lived on bacon fat. She made her own lard. When we rendered out hogs, she'd always save back a 5-gallon can of lard. And my grandmother, she made her own soap. She made a soap called a lye soap. And my mother was no exception. She made her soap too. Ours bars of laundry soap. And my mama and my grandma, they had rub boards. I remember when my grandmother got her very first washing machine, it was a Maytag that had a motor, a gasoline motor. Well, it ran kerosene. Well, you could put kerosene in it. And she would wash clothes. We'd go over and people would gather around and watch her wash them clothes in her Maytag washing machine. I know the first time we got a wringer, my mama did. The wringer was a hand crank wringer for wringing out clothes. And it had a bar up on the top. Gotta let my girl here fasten my glove. It had a bar up on the top so that if your hand got sucked into the rollers, you hit that bar and it would keep it from breaking your fingers. Well, when Mother and Daddy would take off, we would go out there, a bunch of boys would, and we'd decide who was going to be the cranker and who was going to be the crankee. Now the cranker was the one that turned the crank, and the crankee was the one that stuck his hand in the crank. And the thing is, you could turn that lever up on the top, set how much pressure you wanted on the bar, on the two bars, and you'd start very lightly, and you could turn the crank and wind your fingers into the two bars there until probably up to your knuckles. It goes onto your hand, and about that point there, the pain would be pretty intense. So let me shut the air off. I got an air. If I can find where to turn the air off. Oh, there it is. The pain would be pretty intense, so you'd automatically scream and reach up there and hit that bar, and it would pop loose off of your knuckles. So the next guy, after you go around, they would turn the bar one more turn down to see how much pain you could take. And we'd play that game until we got tired of it. Well, actually, we usually played the game until somebody got hurt, and then we'd back off a little bit. My brother Robert, he was hurt more times playing our stupid games when we was young. Him and I was racing a pair of mules. I think his mule, see, we had Pete and Dan was the team of mules that we worked. And I think I was on Dan and Robert was on Pete. Now Pete was what you call a mule, and I was on what you call a horse mule. In other words, it had more characteristics of the horse, more high stamina, more ill temper. The mule was even tempered, and it didn't panic. If you was plowing a team of mules and a real mule run up on a rattlesnake, he would usually stump it with his foot, and that'd be the end of that. A horse mule, if he ran up on a snake, he would push the other mule down trying to get away from the snake. But they were just more skittish. Well, me and Robert, we was racing out there, and we had this big walnut tree, one of what we call a black walnut. Everybody, you young folks may have missed out on some of that, but in our days we had a black walnut, and that black walnut would stain your hands almost permanently. Once you got the stain on black walnut on your fingers, you'd wear it for quite a long time. Even Mama's her old lye soap wouldn't even cut the stain. Well, me and old Robert was racing, and when we come around the corner, my mule cut to the inside corner. That put Robert on the outside, which he had a further distance. But old Robert was laying his heels heavy into the flanks of that mule, and that mule was bowed up pretty good running. And as Robert come around the tree, the mule hit a limb and flipped the mule up in the air. The mule, reared up, throwed Robert off. Robert had his reins tied together, and Robert got his legs into the reins. Well, what happened, that mule laid back on his hunches, his butt. He leaned back, his front legs were stiff, and he went round and around, spinning, trying to shake Robert loose. And Robert is out on the end of that trace, hanging on by his ankle. The trace was tied around his ankle. It was got his ankle tied up into the rope. Anyhow, he was spinning around and around, and his head missing that walnut tree by about an inch. And finally, the mule shook Robert loose after 4 or 5 revolutions. Old Robert hit down. There's some turkeys down there. Old Robert, he hit in that, all them walnuts laying down there on the ground, wallered all around in there. You know, he had walnut stains across his forehead. He had walnut stains down his cheeks, his elbows. He didn't have no meat left on his elbows. He slid all that off. Poor Robert. But old Robert is lucky to be alive. So Robert survived that. And on the farm, we had a Mustang pony. Her name was Maud. Maud was a pretty old Mustang, but high-spirited. And one time Robert said, "I got an idea." "Yeah, Robert, what's your idea?" He says, "What if you put a saddle on Maud, and you rode Maud, and you tied a rope around the saddle horn?" I had one of them old Texas double-girted saddle. You know, you had to cinch up on her good, because she'd kick the hell out of you. She'd buck and jump. And anyhow, we had that old Texas double-girted saddle on her. And Robert said, "You tie the rope around the saddle horn, and then come back and tie the rope around the bicycle up there, the neck on the bicycle, right where the handlebars are." And he said, "I know she'll do. She's really fast in a short burst." He said, "I'd like to experience that wild energy while riding a bicycle." So I told him, I said, "You hold on good, and you let me know when for me to, gouge her a little bit to get her to run." It didn't take much. You just gave her a little, you take both of your heels and kind of kick her back in the flanks there, and she would jump like 12 feet off the ground and then go forward at a rapid rate of speed. Well, I got to prepare myself for a wild ride too. The pony was really fast and hard to hold on to. And I looked back here and I said, "Are you ready, Robert?" Robert said, "Yep." He gave me the old thumbs up. And I got a good hold onto the reins. And I kicked her in the flanks and went, "Yeah!" And the horse absolutely took off like a B-2 rocket. Oh man, she jumped 25 feet straight ahead, and I heard a little bit of a banging sound. But you know, when you're taking off in a wild, high-speed takeoff on a horse, you don't have time to do a lot of looking around. You'd be stupid to be turning. Now, I think a real cowboy can do that. Now, we hadn't qualified to be real cowboys at that point because neither one of us had whipped a cowboy. I later did whoop them, as you know, in one of my last stories, but that was many years afterward that. Anyhow, I kind of turned my head when I heard all that banging going on back here. And my brother was trapped under the bicycle, and it was on its side, and she was doing 30, and he was on a gravel road. And I mean, I'm hoping I'm not painting too much of a graphic picture, but it was awful. It wasn't pretty at all. I finally got her woed up, and it was hard to woe her up after you had gouged her. But she skidded to a halt because I could pull that little, I was a big boy back in my days. When I was young, I was big and strong. I could have pulled that little old pony's head off, you know, and I could have got it stopped, and I did. I jumped off and run back there. Old Robert, he was in a bad sort of way. First of all, I could see the bone down in his arm, and that wasn't pretty at all. A lot of leaders and tendons and all kinds of stuff in there, the blood squirting everywhere. Old Robert ain't got no skin on his knees. Them knees are gone. Oh man, because he was holding on. Well, he was trapped. He got under the bicycle and he couldn't get himself loose. But the bicycle was tied to the horse, and he was in pretty bad shape. So we got him up, got him down to the house there, and my mama had medicine back in them days. See, nobody went to the doctor. That was something you just didn't do. You know, if she'd say, "Did you break his neck?" I go, "No, he just skinned up a little bit." So I took him in there, and she washed all the rocks and gravel out of his cuts. And she had this big old bottle. It's called methylate. Now, you guys know about iodine, but this stuff was multicolored. It had all kinds of chemicals in it called methylate. And my methylate was designed to extract the maximum amount of pain out of you. And she poured that methylate in them open cuts there. And old Robert was jumping around wiggling. He wiggled a lot during that procedure. And then she got down there and dug the rocks out of his knees and washed them real good and poured the methylate all up in them cuts. And then she pulled his shirt up, and Robert had on both sides of his body, his ribs had taken a real serious beating. I mean, there was gouge marks on them and everything. And now you'd think a kid all beat up like that would be laid up for the rest of the year, whining and complaining. Oh no, my brother was out plowing the very next day. And that's just the way things were. There was no time. Now, not that your mama didn't love you, but there was things on the farm had to be done. And when you worked for the man, we was working for a sharecrop on a sharecrop farm. Her husband was incapacitated. He had broken back. He wasn't able to work at all. Me and Robert, Joyce, we did all the work. That's my two sisters and my brother. And my mother, she worked like a mule on that farm. And, oh my gosh, he was out plowing the next day. I gotta say now, he was limping pretty bad. But Mother had wrapped up his legs, and what she did, she'd go in there and take an old pillowcase and the one that's been bleached out real good, and she'd use that as like a bandage. She'd wrapped it up real good. She'd tell him, say, stay out of the creek. That was usually the rule, was stay out of the creek. Oh, my camera is falling off. It's falling off. So anyhow, he survived. He just celebrated his 80th birthday. He's alive today, and thank God. We lived real hard lives. We never asked for any quarter. We never asked for any help or any handouts. We were the kind of people that we would come and give you a helping hand, but we've never asked nothing of anybody at any time. My mother would never allow that kind of behavior. She made us strong, and we're better men for it. And I'm sure y'all have all got the same stories to tell about your mama. Different stories, a little bit different life. You might have been living in a cold water flat in Brooklyn, or you might have been living out on a ranch or a farm out in New Mexico, or oil family of oil people over in Texas. I got stories about Waco, Texas, Kilgore, Tyler, Longview, Grexton, Texas. I can tell you stories. You talk about ladies of the night. We used to go down to Waco, and the ladies would come to work the oil fields, and you paid 75 cents and you could dance with any of them professional ladies. And you could learn all the latest dance moves. You could learn a lot from them. Take my word for it. I wouldn't take nothing from my days in East Texas. The days on the farm was hard, and we never want to go back to that form of living, but we got to say what we learned from it is just unbelievable. Let me get it down in lower gear here. Okay, if I can get tuck off here, my camera is falling off, so I'm having to hold it with one hand. If I can make it over to where I'm going. I'm trying to get down there before the light. Hope I don't have to stop again. Anyhow, that's enough with my BS for the day. All you guys have got your own stories, and I like to hear them. I go and I sort out. I look for stories of people that had maybe a different lifestyle than me, but everybody's got a story about their life, about their upbringing, about the loves in their life, about the problems of growing up in different periods of time. In the 50s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, they were really rough periods of time. They took a certain amount of stamina to be able to endure those periods of time. We had wars, and we had hard living, and we enjoyed what life we had. We loved our food. Today is Fishy Friday. And I think we're going to have fish and coleslaw, and that when we get back from the drugstore. I spend more time at this drugstore. Let me go ahead and say goodbye. You guys have a great day. Love each and every one of you.